Yeah, it is 10 a.m. here, Central Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. The latest update on Helene is that we do have a official hurricane now. The storm is still sitting about around Cancun, just now getting to the Yucatan Channel, has strengthened to an 80-mile-per-hour Category 1 storm with gusts approaching 100 miles an hour. The movement of this thing is starting to turn more north now, and we will likely see this northerly component continue today with occasionally some northeast jogs, northwest jogs, but the northerly movement has started at this point, will continue as Helene makes its way into the Gulf of Mexico. The structure of this thing has greatly improved over the past 24 hours, and it is growing in size. So not only are we seeing the intensity grow with the winds, the size of the winds are growing. Looking at the wind field right now, hurricane force winds stretch 25 miles out from the center. Tropical storm force winds are 275 miles away from the center. What this tells us is that the size of Helene is going to be incredible. We're talking about one of the top 5, probably biggest wind fields of a storm in the Gulf of Mexico that we have seen in a long time, at least of this century here. So that's what is quite remarkable about Helene. The latest track here, we have seen no big shifts, and I can't emphasize that enough. Do not focus on minor little shifts here, because this is going to be such a major storm for Florida and such a big storm that the impacts are not going to change all that greatly with these minor shifts. Now in Louisiana and Mississippi, we're still not expecting any big impacts. We'll have a couple showers and storms today. We'll have some gusty winds tomorrow, 20, 30, 35 miles an hour. That's it here locally in Louisiana and Mississippi. But you can see the official track here, what we're looking at. And digital, I don't know if you can hear me, but we have the wrong source pulled up in our graphics here. I don't know if we can get it over to Weather 1 at some point, but what you're looking at here with the structure of the hurricane right now is that it is confined, and you can see there, thank you so much, digital, you can see there the track of this thing heading north today and then some northeasterly movement tomorrow. The 8 a.m. criteria or movement there at 120 miles an hour by tomorrow morning. Now the landfall still expected to be about 8 p.m. or so tomorrow evening around Tallahassee. This would be a major Category 3 right on the cusp of a Category 4. So we always say prepare for a category higher. Those in and around Tallahassee and where that center moves on shore need to be preparing for a Category 4 hurricane at least. And once you get to a 4 and up, you're just talking about the same destruction at this point. So this is going to be a very impactful storm. Now the cone, I know it looks like it's far away from Florida, the peninsula itself. The thing about this is, remember, it's going to be extending so far away from the center. Your wind field is going to stretch all the way into Tampa, Fort Myers, Orlando, Jacksonville, Miami. All these locations are going to see tropical storm conditions. Now, if you're watching us and wondering about this turn, the ridge has weakened enough where that's why this thing is turning. So we've got the ridge out of the Gulf of Mexico. You can see there it's pushed back towards off the east coast of the United States. Our trough is coming down off of the south here, and so that's why this thing is turning to the north. Let's talk about wind impacts, because not only are we going to see extensive wind impacts right here on the coastal areas in the panhandle of Florida and right around the Big Bend, Tallahassee, they're going to stretch inland because the storm is going to be speeding up, and by the time it makes landfall, it will be moving at a good rate, and that will just allow those strong winds to push further inland. So anywhere in purple is where we are clocking winds at least 110 miles an hour. That is all the way up to Tallahassee, that's all the way up to I-10, and we could even see winds gusting up around 100 miles an hour in extreme southern Georgia. In red there, that's where you could see destructive winds anywhere from 75 to 110 miles an hour. And then in orange, that's 60 to 70 miles an hour. That gets into the Gainesville area, and then going over towards Panama City, we're talking winds 60 to 70 miles an hour. And then the further north you get, you're talking about less and less of a wind impact, but still certainly winds in portions of Georgia up towards Macon. We could be looking at 60-mile-an-hour winds, and then Atlanta probably anywhere from 40 to 50-mile-per-hour winds late Thursday night into early Friday morning. So Atlanta will see some impacts from this, but we're talking heavy rain and gusty winds down there. So that's the wind impact from this storm. Another growing concern are flooding rains, and the flooding rain potential is most likely going to be the most significant issue up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The concern is growing. It's already raining up there today. The rain will continue even today, tomorrow, and into early Friday. So we could see over a foot of rain for areas around Asheville, northern Georgia, getting down into portions of anywhere in the Blue Ridge Mountains in North Carolina, over a foot of rain. That is going to cause catastrophic flooding in those areas, especially with all the elevation and the terrain. So that's what's going on with your impact from rainfall from this storm. Now, when you look at storm surge, this is a large storm, which means storm surge is going to be impactful not only near the center, but all the way down the Florida coastline. Now, the closer you get to the center, the higher the surge. We're still thinking about 10 to 15 feet there for areas to the east of the side of the center, up into the Cedar Key area. We're talking about Tampa, 5 to 8 feet. Just north of Tampa may approach 10 feet, and then down towards Fort Myers, 3 to 5 feet seems like a good bet. And then just north of there, you could start to get into that 5 to 8 foot range. So we are talking about some life-threatening surge all up and down the Florida Panhandle, just most significant closer to that center in the Big Bend. The center, the core of this is likely going to miss Tampa and Sarasota and those areas. It's such a large wind field that the more wind you have pushing, the more water that gets piled up. So we always say don't focus on the category necessarily for things like surge and rain. This is a great example of that. At the end of the day, this is going to be one of the largest hurricanes we've had in this century in the Gulf of Mexico. We're talking about the size of it, how wide and how far spread out those winds are, and so that is impressive. Now, the storm for Southeast Louisiana, once again, minimal impacts. We're talking about some showers and storms today coming in with our weak cool front. I want to show you this cool front coming in later on this afternoon. A couple strong thunderstorms are a possibility here, but you can see those outer bands already starting in Florida later today, lasting into tonight. So Florida's going to see impacts from this throughout the day on Thursday. Now, it's not going to rain continuously for the peninsula of Florida during this event. You can see there will be breaks on Thursday, but occasionally you'll get some of these isolated cells that break apart. That's a tornado threat. So there's also a tornado threat for that peninsula of Florida. For the Panhandle, it's going to rain all day tomorrow, it looks like, and that'll pose a flood risk as well. And then there it is, making landfall Thursday evening as at least a Category 3, could be a Category 4, and then quickly racing inland as we head into parts of Thursday night and Friday. Now, if you're watching us in New Orleans or anywhere down here and you're going up to the Saints game this weekend in Atlanta, this will be long gone by Saturday and Sunday, but lingering impacts, of course, some flooding impacts, maybe gusty winds knock out some power, something to watch out for, but the impactful ongoing tropical system will be gone by the time we get into the upcoming weekend. So that is the latest as of 10 o'clock here. A quick little recap if you're just joining us. We now have Hurricane Helene. It is a Category 1 storm that has greatly improved and organized over the past 24 hours. It has also grown in size. Our wind is now stretched 275 miles away from the center of that. That's tropical storm force winds. How does that compare since 4 a.m.? Well, at 4 a.m., the tropical storm force winds were 175 miles away from the center. So to show you what that looks like, the difference, here's our center. At 4 a.m., our tropical storm force winds were about that far away from the center. Now they're roughly, 100 miles more. So we are seeing the size of this thing grow in not only intensity, but the size of that wind field. And the wind field and how far away those winds stretch away from the center is an important factor in how bad the storm surge will be. So we do think this is going to continue to strengthen as it makes its northerly turn into the Gulf. Once again, a look at that track. Continuing to strengthen up to a Category 2 later today, Category 3 tomorrow, could be near a Category 4 by landfall tomorrow evening around the Tallahassee area. And we do think the Tallahassee area, if you have students over at FSU, going to get rocked by this storm. You're talking widespread power outage potential for those areas, and that power outage potential will spread all the way into extreme southern Georgia as this intense hurricane makes landfall for tomorrow. So that is the latest as of 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. The next track update will come in at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Don't expect any significant changes with that with regard to the path. The main thing we're going to be watching right now is to see how quickly this thing intensifies as it approaches the Gulf of Mexico. Low wind shear and extremely hot waters, and that's all a recipe for a very, very strong storm. Thank you so much for joining me on our streaming services and WWL+.